So Dr. Sintieh is another physician. He's based at the university in Zürich, where he's a doctoral candidate. He's an MD, but he's also presently doing a doctoral candidate and he's going to be addressing us on sorry, I must get this right. AI in resource limited setting. So Dr. Sintieh Ekongefeyin. So Ekongefeyin. Okay. So he's an MD and then he's doing a PhD.
Meeting is being recorded.
Okay. That's Isa Lixia speaking. So he is a physician. Sintieh is a physician student and a PhD candidate in digital and mobile health at the University of Zurich. Dr. Sintieh, you've got the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief, and thank you, CamDoc, for the invite and for the introduction. I have been in all listening to all the presenters, and they've actually made my work very easy. I'll be pulling a lot from everything they've all said and trying to make sure that it resonates to all what they've presented alongside with what I'm presenting. So I am Sintieh Ekongefeyin. I'm a Cameroonian medical doctor trained in Boya and then did my MSc in Applied Digital Health at the University of Oxford and then went to the US for a bit and now I am in Zurich to do a PhD in AI and digital health. And for me, the goal is really to use these technologies we are all hyping about and actually walk with the wave and see if there is some good that can come out of it, especially where need arises. So that is how my journey has been pivoted. But before we proceed, I just want to talk to you guys about how this happened. So in 2019, I was a GP 1 year into practice in Cameroon, and I lost a patient called Christy. Christy was 35 years old. She was a mother of 3, and we recently diagnosed her with stage 1 hypertension. And we had started her with preliminary treatment and then expecting her to come back for us to follow up in 2 weeks. I mean, that is what the guidelines said at the time. But within 2 weeks, she arrived in the emergency unresponsive. And what happened was that the spouse told us that she had just complained of a chest pain during dinner and has passed and then passed on. And what happened was that while they left home to get to our hospital in Yaoundé at the time, they had to go to 5 other hospitals. And there's a common thing called patient ping pong. Maybe those of us who've practiced in Cameroon can bear to that, where you go to one hospital and they say, oh, the doctor is not around, we can't receive you, go to the next. And they did that triage or that journey, that ping pong journey. And then when they got to our hospital, it was too late. Christy was unresponsive. She had died of a heart attack. Looking at our post-mortem ECG that we did at the time. Now, the question that I asked myself at this point was, could we have seen this danger early? Does guideline work for every patient? Does following the guideline really work for every patient? And could we have technology that helps us follow up these patients? And that is what led me to exploring my passion to really using technology in healthcare back while still in medical school. And that has brought us to this presentation. And for me, I really want us to think about these 3 things when we are talking about the use of AI in healthcare and AI in particularly for resource limited settings. Sorry, the slides are going faster than I anticipated. So what does it really mean? We want to use AI that is really local, and it's one that really built on the realities, the constraints of where that setting is. So if you look at the general practitioner in Cameroon, what do they have available with them and what are the constraints they have? That is what we want the models to learn. Secondly, is it really safe in the hands of these clinicians? I don't want to really talk about the users or the patients, as we'll call them in healthcare, but is it really safe in the hands of these clinicians? And so we want it to be led by clinicians who, first of all, understand, are informed, are educated with this skill. And secondly, they are also educated, not just medicine, but also evidence-based. So they are on the front line of what is new in their field and what is applicable in their setting. And the most important thing for us is, I mean, all of us are using these tools officially and unofficially. But the question is it really useful? Does it help you to achieve a particular solution? Now, towards the end of this presentation, I would want to do a demo, and I want to push all of us to think of anyone who is inspired, think of a case, a clinical case scenario, and we're going to demo a local model and see if it can give us an answer that tells us that it's useful or safety. So please, while we go on in the presentation, please think of a case scenario. I have one prepared. We're going to do that, but I would want a second case so that we try that in real time and we can see what happens with local models. But that's the foundation. And for me, looking at resource limited settings, it's not just it's not just absence of resources. It's actually a system of course constraints. And as a frontline clinicians, we've said this in all the previous presentations, but I want to pick out 4 important things which are highlighted in yellow here. So we have paper-based records, and for us to have our own models, we need to digitize these records and feed them to those models so that they can learn. We can skip this phase as well with phones and everything and use that. Secondly, we need local guidance. And we all know in most African countries, Cameroon in particular, we don't have standard clear guidelines for particular pathologies or for particular sections of practice. And so we copy what is done in the UK, what is done in the US. And if you go to Boya, they'll tell you, oh, I was trained in the UK, so I'm using the UK guidelines. I was trained in the US, so I'm using the US guidelines. And so you find students, even in training, confused on what to use. So we don't have that. And so imagine if we're putting AI in this space, it's also going to be as confused as those students. The second is the referral system is crazy. You've heard the story of Christy. They left from home and they were referred from hospital to hospital. Honestly, even we sit in our various doctor forums, we ask, oh, where is the cardiologist? Where is the gastroenterologist? Now that Prof. Theodore is retired. So we hope we are going to get him in Cameroon as well. But yeah, so things like this. And the next is medicines. What is available? What do we really have? And so we see that resource limited is really a system of constraints. And you being the frontline clinicians, you need to juggle with these things on both arms. And you want to find out how can I actually have an assistance that is useful. And with this in mind, that is what really informs how my current research is going about building local models. And it takes me back to the very first paper that led to the move of generative AI. So this is the paper that was published by Google. Attention is all you need, because the underlying mechanism behind these models is what we call a transformer model. So it takes an input, it changes it to a certain output. That's as simple as I'll put it. Not going any technical, but for us, we want to understand, we also want to make sure that it's not just about the attention. The models already have that the attention. That's why they can predict the next token, so they can give you a next text. And so whether the text is accurate, which is what we want, or it is false, which is an hallucination, as others have said, it doesn't really care. Its role is to give you the next token, and that's what it has been trained to do. But now your role is to give it the necessary clinical context that it would be able to give you an information that is relevant. And that is what we can do from scratch, but we can also leverage with the fact that big tech companies have invested a lot to already build these models. And so we ask ourselves, what are context-specific things that are unique to your setting, even in the UK? What are those context-specific things? What are the drugs that your trust recommends to be used? What is always available in stock? What is the referral pathway in your trust, in your country? Whatever it is, but it has to be that specific when you're thinking of having local models. And what we want to really highlight, what I'm trying to highlight here, is that all of these models are intelligent. All of them, they are super, like looking at from 2022 to now, we have models that are doing insanely good things, and everybody should be trying them and getting impressed, and also just making sure that you stay abreast with them. But it doesn't equate to implementation readiness. Most of the AI pilots have not moved the needle so far, especially in healthcare. And that is a challenge. And that is why you really want to build something that is local and something that is specific. And so various ways that we can think is that if we have a health facility anywhere in the world, let's say in the UK, because everyone here is in the UK, yeah? So we have cloud models. So these models run within a local cloud. So common things, we've already highlighted ChatGPT and the rest, but you can also have your local cloud model for your GP trust, for your hospital trust, whatever it is. And as well, you can have a model based on your server that has been trained by your university, by your uni hospital and ever. But most importantly, what I'm going to be showing to you guys today, it's really the local models, which can run on your own laptop as well as on your mobile device. And that is where currently my research is focused on, is how to build these models. And so you have to be able to identify a clear task, look at the risks that you're judging, and also then what is the infrastructure you need when you are about to choose these methods of deployment. Is it in the cloud? Is it in a local server? Or do you want it local? Because we are medical doctors, we are in a very delicate setting where privacy is very important. For me, it's always pro local first, and then you then look at how your server is secured with all the cyber security. We all know the news about Fable 5 and Mythos 5 being pulled back by the US because it's super strong and it can jailbreak even the batteries that were put into it. So things like that are bound to happen. And so how do we protect ourselves from that? And so local models for us are really models that can even run on your mobile device. And on this slide, you really have examples of those. And so you have Slim LM, which is a 125 million to 7 billion token model. It can run on a Samsung Galaxy S24 already, and it can help you with summarization, question and answer, and also suggestions. So these are things that you don't need the internet to use it. And it goes back to Dr. Kate's question, I guess I'm not wrong yet, about how can we use this locally? These are models already that are ready to use. Same thing with mobile quant, and as well, there are other platforms. Again, you already have the fast Gemini version, and also you also have the light version of ChatGPT that are already on your apps. You can use them. But if we look at these three, the Slim model and mobile quants, these are local models, and you also have a little bit of control because you can share it off the internet and it doesn't take your data. But again, that is what the manufacturers say. I don't have the gospel truth to that. But this is what is most important for us to pay attention. And what is the potential value of you having these local models? I mean, for resource limited settings is that it's going to reduce how much we pay for cloud services. Believe you me, running a cloud service for an AI in 24 hours will cost you at least 100K pounds if you are using a very cheap model. And so again, data transfer, which for us, we know, especially in the UK, even moving your GP records from one GP practice to another takes forever. Imagine that we will need to transfer data between agents, AI agents, agent-to-agent transfer and communications. This is going to take us a lot of time, but we can bridge that if we are using local models. And I like the example of mobile money actually helping us leapfrog. And this is what I'm currently trying to look at. Can we have local models that can help our doctors serve us better in resource limited settings? And currently, for local models, the things that have been identified to be useful is summarization. So you can have it with you in your consultation to summarize a language. I bet you me, ChatGPT is so good, and Gemini as well, to interpreting Pidgin now. And I think in English Common, Pidgin is one of the common languages that we use in consultation. So you can already use that, right? And then importantly, guideline retrieval. So you can give these models guidelines to give you the information. I like the example that was given by Prof, which said that a model can tell you that in this city, in this house, in this book, and in this page, this is what it reads. And that is why we use guideline retrieval. And I'm going to elaborate that shortly. Translation always, and then structured text extraction. So you can actually take text that is unstructured, and then it gives you that in a useful format. But how do we get to having these models into very portable devices? There's always a trade-off, right? So if we think of, in those days, we had ultrasounds that were very large, and now we have portable ultrasounds. You can think of everything. The first computer was a full house, but now we have laptops that are the power of an entire industry on our desks. So it's all about quantizing, and it goes back to the theory of quantum mechanism and quantum physics, that we convert a 32-bit model to a 4-bit model, but we tend to lose some things, right? We lose the memory. It doesn't have that wide memory. It doesn't have a lot of inferences, but we lose some of its capability. But again, if you are able to work around the features and the temperature of that model, it's going to also help you to get it for your specific purpose. So I like the question of Dr. Carter, which is how can we use it for diabetes? And so if I'm quantizing a model for diabetes, I would then take an open source model that has been trained on large medical data and then harness its interface only for diabetes knowledge and then build on that, so that we don't need to build a model from scratch, and we build from there. And there's a lot of success stories already on teams that have developed unique models for particular things. And that brings me to the 3 ways things can be made useful. The first one is prompting. I like the fact that Dr. Nafti did a very brilliant job with telling us about prompting. That was what started back in the days in 2022. Prompting in general was a very big thing. I would always push us that when you have your prompt engineering in check, then get into context engineering, which is what I'm going to elaborate in step 2. But prompting is simply the model has a pre-trained knowledge. You need to talk to it in a way that gets that knowledge out. And I like the examples already presented in the previous slide. I'm going to show you guys a version of mine, but it's still the same concept. So we want to extract that knowledge that is already there. But what gives us an added source to this innovation is the advent of what we call retriever augmented generation. So that's what RAG stands for. And this simply means that we give these models a particular guideline, a particular corpus, a particular source of context, of information. And so if you can see in the figure down here, the model is not alone. It has this source of data. And then we can now ask it, hey, go to this database, look at Cameroonian resources, and tell me what exactly I should do in this case. And then that grounds it. And so this is how most research organizations have been able to reduce the aspect of hallucination. And for those of us that have been avid AI users, from ChatGPT to Gemini to Claude AI, you would see that initially you couldn't upload files, but now they gave you the options to upload files in projects and the rest. And because that is a kind of what we call a mini rack, because you want to have that context. And that's like context engineering 101. And that is what I would say. If you are an avid AI user as a clinician and you have your best medical textbooks, please convert them to PDF and put it somewhere. You can even use Notebook LM and put it and then tie it to your Gemini. And it's going to help you to retrieve information only from your best medical textbooks. And it's going to read you exactly and tell you, please give me the chapter and the section that you got this information from. Is going to give you that. And that is the power of having a rack or a stronger context over even prompting engineering. And so regardless of your prompt, if your context is good, you'll get good enough information to move forward. And the last, which is what we have to do, which is coming to Dr. Carter's question, which is how do we adapt models for a particular condition in a particular setting? Then we have the guidelines, we have this, we know what is working, then we need to fine tune it. So that gives us now the patterns of touching on the features, the weights and everything. That I'm not going to get into technical information, but that's an entire maths class on its own. But that's how we do it. And then you can now say that a model like Germa, which is an open source model, can be fine-tuned and adapted and RAG and prompt to a specific Cameroon local setting. And this is a hope that I hope to be able to do in part of my PhD and to be able to show that this works and then how this could be scaled. But that's how it works. Now, prompting has its place, and I always advise friends who are clinicians to always understand the role around prompting. And I have two things here. So you have the commercial guide and you have the JAMA guides. So again, every prompt needs to give the AI a role and a task. If that is missing, then you won't have a good response. So if there's anything you want to put in your prompt, please give it a role and a task. Hey, you are the assistant to this doctor. I need you to do this. Be very clear on that. Then you're going to get an answer. That's the first thing. Then you can add context. Okay, you are in a resource limited setting, or you are in this third facility and it has 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you can also give it now constraints because you need it to be specific. It has a lot of knowledge. Its role is just to predict the next token, but you also want to be sure that it gives you the tokens that you need because you're paying for this if you're using a paid model. And you can then, what we missed most of the time is recommending an output format. You can tell it, please, I need it as a CSV, I need it as an Excel sheet, I need it as a PowerPoint, and it's going to give you that. The models now are so strong. But again, and then you have the point where I would say it's always said zero-shot prompting is good. That means a prompt without any prior modification. But one shot is even better because the first output from the model without anything is good enough. That's what the model has. But now you need now to put your human intellect in it. And so giving that interface and judging and pushing back, it helps the model to give you a better output. And so that's why most research would tell you that zero shot is good, one shot is better, and then two shots, the gain is not really much. So that's when you iterate more than one time with the model. But again, both structures from OpenAI and from JAMA, which I think is a top medical journal most of us read, they're similar. The difference is that you need to always tighten things when you are looking at clinical data, and you always need human evaluation. So all the medical guidelines are crystal clear on that. You have to be the pilot on it because, like we said, who is accountable? And it's a term which is called the moral chromosome. Doctors are still liable for whatever technology that is being used in healthcare. You'll be held for it regardless. And so you want to be certain that before you veto any opinion, you've read it, and you're clear on that. So now, this leads me to my 5 hours of prompting for clinicians in particular, especially clinicians in resource-limited settings. What is the role you want to give that model? What is the reality? What is the context that you want to give that model? What are the rules that it should pay attention to? So you can tell it, please use only Cameroonian guidelines if they exist, or use only guidelines from New England Journal of Medicine or from BMJ, since we are in the UK, sorry. And then it is going to use only that. So you put those rules and those guardrails. Don't reveal any gender, put all of those things. And then response, give it the kind of response you want. And then tell it to ask you to review. And we're just going to look at that shortly. I think this is the core of my presentation. And now we are going to have a live demo. I'm going to kind of move my screen, and we are going to use an open source version of ChatGPT, which is called GPT OSS. It's a very lightweight version. You can run it locally on your laptop. Any laptop from like 2020 can run that. So you can have it locally, and then we are going to test it. And the scenario I have written here is something that I prepared for this session, but I would also want us, like I said, while I'm running this, let someone in the room who is inspired can just tell us a clinical case scenario. It doesn't have to follow the 5 arrows that I just showed you guys, but any case scenario, and then we are going to run it and see how well the model performs when we give it a challenging case. But the case we're going to do, I'm going to read it out loud, which is you are a clinician decision support assistant for a licensed clinician in this district, and you have a 55-year-old woman with an elevated blood pressure. She's known to be having diabetes, and she has headaches and dizziness, and with no focal neurologic deficits. What is available is an ECG, it's a urine dipstick, and the drugs available is amlodipine, captopril, hydrochlorothiazide, and there's no CT scan available, and the referral is 2 hours away. So what I want you to return as the AI, please tell me the danger signs, what I should do immediately to assess this patient, and what is feasible for me to do, what are the referral triggers, and also what information is missing. And what I want us to think while I do this, it's to assess the AI answer in 4 boxes. Was it safe? Is it useful? Did it respect the context? And was it humble enough to acknowledge things that it was uncertain? And I'm going to quickly share, but I am hoping that somebody is inspired to share a case vignette with us. But while I pull out my terminal, so the harness I am using is called Olama, and I'm going to ask it to run for me GPT OSS, which is what it's locally installed in my device. So this is appeared. I just want to see if is this readable. If anyone can confirm to me if this is legible enough for the audience. All right, thank you very much. So my first thing is what I call priming the model, and I'm going to ask the model if it has medical knowledge. So the first thing I ask is, do you have medical knowledge? Good. So I've called the model again, and now I'm going to ask it, do you have medical knowledge? And yeah, so what I want to show this is because it's important that you trust the models that you're using. GPT, so OpenAI, Google, they actually have various harnesses, and they have specialized versions of their models, and they're able to actually show you when they have medical knowledge or not. And I'm hoping that this is going to work. It's taking so much longer than expected. All right. So, all right. So what we are seeing on the screen is a model that gives us a thinking process, right? And what we have just seen here first, it's the thinking. And what we call this is a chain of thoughts. And for you who is using any AI model, you always want to look at the chain of thoughts, what the model has considered before giving you an output. And here we actually see that it says that the user wants to know that I have medical knowledge, but my medical knowledge is as of up to 2023. But I am not a doctor and cannot provide professional advice. Also, I encourage you to consult professionals. It's done thinking. So that is its chain of thought. And then it gave us an answer, which is these are the things I can do and all of that. And I'm going to just paste the prompt that I have. I like the fact that we also had the concept of having a prompt library, which is very good. So I also have this one generated for the role of this presentation. So I'm just going to swipe back to my terminal. And so like we did, the case is really a female presenting with signs of severe hypertension, and we want to find out if the model is going to give us an answer that is valuable. And so the model now is thinking. And for me, anytime I'm using a model, I always want to look at its chain of thoughts. And so we can already see early on, it tells us we need to be specific on the sections that have been provided and the rules. We should also include danger signs, immediate assessment, and all of that. And then it has finished reviewing. Note that a CT scan is not available and all of that. So that is its thought process. And for this, I am happy. And it says, okay, let's craft. So these are several AI agents working together. And so the first is, it gives us a danger sign, right? The danger sign is rapidly escalating blood pressure readings or advanced end organ damage, so chest pain, visual signs, severe headache, maybe with papillary edema, which makes sense. I mean, I can still recall those days in medical school. And then, but there's no neurological deficits. There's also there may be signs of acute cardiovascular compromise, and then uncontrolled diabetes, maybe. So it gives us immediate assessment. What is your immediate assessment? So remeasure the blood pressure, both arms and the heart rate, verify the capillary blood glucose, fasting versus postprandial, perform a rapid bedside neurological check, Glasgow Coma score, pupils, limb movement and speech, inspect the skin and conjunctiva for pallor, cyanosis or edema, and review current medications and adherence to antihypertensive and or diabetes. So main clinical considerations. So this is it. It is a hypertensive emergency or urgency with a blood pressure of 18/11 and with headache and dizziness suggests urgency. If any end organ damage signs, it escalates to emergency. To the clinicians in the house, is this something you would take as a correct assessment?
Generally, they're saying yes.
All right. So, and then it gives us the medications that are available and then the limitations. So there's no CT scan on clinical exam. And so what is most important, it's what it says, the feasible actions now. Antihypertensive adjustment. If patient is already on all three agents and BP remains greater than this, consider adding a short-acting intravenous, if available, labetalol 20 IV repeat. I don't know if this is correct, but please, clinicians, correct us. If only oral agents are available, increase the existing oral medications, or e.g. double the dose of amlodipine and a short-acting captopril, and then glucose management. So if capillary blood pressure glucose is greater than 250, do this. And education as well. So it is giving us a plethora of things to do. And I just want to find out from the house, do we feel confident that this model is safe, it's useful, it has taken into consideration our context, and it's something that can help a frontline clinician who doesn't have a consultant standing next to him to immediately give him action points. They can use it to serve the larger masses.
Generally, yeah. People are nodding.
All right. So that comes to the end of the answer. I'm happy that this worked. And I like the fact that it says a licensed clinician must verify this response against the patient's local guidance and available resources before acting. All right. So that is that. And then we come back to my slides. And yes, so I don't know how much we're doing for time, but if there's no time, then some other time we'll try another case unit.
Dr. Sintieh, we've got 5 more minutes, please.
All right, thank you very much. I think I'm good for time then. So again, when we are using local models, what's most important for us is that we shouldn't put any patient identifiers. So this has already been said a long time ago, regardless of if you're using local model or the ones in the cloud, the ones we all know. And again, we always look at benchmarks, but don't treat benchmarks as clinical scores. So this is what you always see on Twitter, on the internet. Oh, ChatGPT Health has outpaced all clinicians and things like that on the USMLE or on the PLABs, whatever it is. Don't look at those benchmarks as clinical readiness. What's also most important is that let the models make, do not let models make autonomous decisions. So you should stay in the loop. You are the clinician in the loop. And you don't need to fine tune a model. So if any of us go down the route of creating a model for our own use case, you don't need to fine tune a model when you don't yet know the problem the model is going to help you. So the most important take home here is that we should use something that is really narrow specific, something that we can easily reverse. So the harm is not that much, and also something that is very transparent that we can clearly audit. And yeah, so for me, the future of AI in healthcare will not be decided by the best tech teams, nor in the world best resourced hospitals. It would be determined by its performance where the need is greatest, when led by those closest to work, like clinicians, all of you seated in this room, and when it's built to strengthen and not replace the clinician. And so if we succeed to do this, and if AI is truly transformative, then maybe it would save many more lives like Christy. And probably Christy would still be alive if we had integrated such systems. But hopefully we would prevent deaths like this. Thank you very much for your kind attention.